This is energy is life. The lack of affordable energy is despair and death. And we need to fight everything we can to bring energy to Ukraine. And President Trump, as you've all heard so many times, his single biggest goal is to better people's lives and to save people's lives. Peace has been a massive agenda for him. He has pushed all of us in the administration all in to see what we can do to get energy, to get infrastructure, to get repair parts to Ukraine. And then on the other side, what are the most effective measures we can do to starve the Russian war?
But in September, Russia restarted the massive attacks against the gas infrastructure, and unfortunately, we lost a lot. Yes, we tried to repair, but we all understand that Russia will continue. And for us, the additional gas import, the additional natural gas resources, it could be critical.
Now for this discussion, we welcome David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for joining us again. Good to see you. David, now looking at this, how might President Trump's approach to U.S.-Ukraine Energy Corporation differ or is changing from given his past skepticism towards foreign aid?
Well, Donald is very mercurial. It's one of the things I've tried to get people to understand in the 37 years I've known and written about Donald. So what we've done today may not be what we do even this afternoon. And you have to read everything about this in that term. On the other hand, it's very clear that Trump has come to realize that Vladimir Putin is not his friend on ending the war, has no interest in ending the war, and that if he's going to not have egg all over his face about this, he's got to help the Ukrainians. And Russia is adopting new military tactics, some of them originated by the Ukrainians, about ways to attack energy supplies. And in the modern world, energy is in good part what determines how you can prosecute a war. And
could Trump's America First energy agenda reshape U.S. commitments to Europe's energy security amid the war in Ukraine? And what role would a Trump administration likely play in balancing support for Ukraine with efforts to rebuild its relations with Russia, particularly with President Putin, in terms of President Trump's kind of admiring relations with him?
Well, Western Europe, that's yet to be seen. But without a loss to Putin, Europe faces nothing but continued expansionist with military force by the Kremlin.
Right. Thank you very much, David K. Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this region now. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has suggested that drone sightings over Belgium could be related to discussions about the use of frozen Russian assets. Belgium holds 183 billion euros in Russian assets, which constitutes the majority of all Russian state assets in the EU. Earlier, in a sharp speech, Pistorius also warned that Russia continues to seek to sow doubt, divide, and influence elections. And he also said that Russia will not back down from its attempts to forcibly redraw borders. Last month, EU leaders failed to agree on a 140 billion euros reparations loan for Ukraine, which was to be secured by frozen Russian assets. On that note, let's listen into what German Defense Minister has said.
Die sehen wir alle, sehen auch die Belgier so. Das ist eine Maßnahme, die der Verunsicherung dienen soll, der Angstmache in Belgien, wagt es bloß nicht an die Assets zu gehen. Das kann man gar nicht anders interpretieren.
Now we go back to David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for staying with us. Now looking at this, how would Trump's transactional view, as you mentioned in earlier discussion as well, of these alliances affect coordination within European partners on issues such as sanctions and asset seizures?
Well, in the past, Trump has opposed, or his administration at least, has opposed the idea of using Russian assets in Europe to help finance the war for Ukraine. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of money that's there, close to $200 billion. The Europeans would much prefer to spend Russia's money to resist Russia than to spend their own money. I think that the German defense minister, Pistorius, was very clear in his comments as I read the translation. He says there is no explanation for the drone flights over Belgium that are posing somewhat of a threat to aviation security, but an effort by the Russians to intimidate and try to persuade the Europeans not to use the frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. That's going to involve a lot of serious discussion by both diplomatic and military people about how far do you poke the bear. If you do, in fact, drain those Russian accounts and use them to help the Ukrainians, will that provoke some kind of aggressive action against the rest of NATO or selected countries in NATO, notably Belgium? So this, I suspect, will be the subject of a lot of very intense and sophisticated discussion about how to deal with this. And all of this goes back to the mistake Joe Biden made in the fall of 2021, before the invasion, when he should have said to, I'm sorry, in the fall of 2020, when he should have said to the Kremlin, put one foot inside Ukraine and you will be met with ferocious opposition from the Ukrainians, who we will fully support. Instead, he took an incrementalist approach because he's at heart a diplomat, and that did not work. Appeasement doesn't work.
Yes, indeed. With that, I would like to thank David K. Johnston for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. The United Nations has issued a stark warning over signs of escalating fighting in Sudan's Kordofan region, urging an immediate end to the conflict that has devastated the country for over a year. The alert has come after the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, claimed that they had agreed to a humanitarian truce proposed by mediators, even as reports emerged of new troop movements towards Kordofan and the capital, Khartoum. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has said that civilians remain trapped in this recently captured city of Al-Fashar, where he warned of continuing atrocities, including executions, sexual violence, and ethnic targeting. He said casualties and destructions were mounting in Kordofan, with clear preparations for intensified hostilities. Turk has urged countries to hold military support for warring parties and called for bold and urgent action to end the bloodshed. The fall of Al-Fashar last month gave the RSF control over all 5 Darfur state capitals, deepening fears that Sudan could split along an east-west divide. Now for this discussion, we welcome Adrian Calamel. He's a terror scholar, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Adrian, for joining us. Good to see you. Adrian, how do these tactics of RSF and territorial ambitions align with patterns seen in other paramilitary insurgent movements across Africa?
Well, it's good to see you again, Asuma, and thanks for having me on the show. Good evening to all your viewers.
Thank you.
The RSF, I would like to back up a little bit, because a lot of the UN's attention is on the RSF, which is the Raid Support Forces, which was once part of the Sudanese Armed Forces. These two groups were supposed to basically put down their arms after they pushed aside a military dictatorship, okay? Pushed aside a military dictatorship towards a civilian rule. Then it became an issue where RSF was kind of pushed to the side. Sudanese armed forces really wanted to capture the entire country. Now, if you want to understand the Sudanese armed forces, they are heavily entrenched with Muslim Brotherhood. All right, this is a Islamist group. The RSF generally, yes, both sides, atrocities on both sides. The RSF has been acting like a paramilitary group. They've been partners with the Sudanese armed forces for years. When we hear about the massacres in Darfur and South Sudan that took place about a decade ago, the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces were part of it. The RSF, like when we hear about the Janjaweed and these groups, that's part of the RSF. So we see these tactics. We see, sexual violence being used, rape as a tactic. We're seeing supposedly yesterday mass graves. Now with the RSF, my biggest concern with them is that when the UN is starting to put a target on their back, this becomes a problem. They're not looking at the other side of the issue, which is Sudanese armed forces, which has committed just as many atrocities, maybe more, and has a clear agenda, and that is a military dictatorship under Muslim Brotherhood rule, which the Sudanese people tried to throw off in 2019. They wanted to get rid of this type of relationship, and they were supposed to have free elections in 2023, and then immediately they got civil war instead. And now the world is finally paying attention. You have 150,000 people dead. This is guaranteed, 150,000, possibly more. And 12 million people, get that, 12 million people displaced. That's Syria level. And now the UN is just deciding to focus on this, a real genocide. This should have been a topic 2 years ago. Unfortunately, it's now just becoming one. And I think the UN needs to look at this with clear eyes.